All right, here we go.
Agreed.
All right, so we got college right around the corner, starting this week for some, next week for others, 3 and 4 weeks away for some.
We don't even know.
Don't know. It's starting at all different times, but we figured since we work with a lot of young adults and the addiction treatment world that it would be a good topic for us today to go through, like what college looks like for a lot of those people. Warning signs. I don't know. We'll try to cover as much as we can. So
Mhm.
Cole, you got a good list for us?
Yeah, I do. But before we get into that, I kind of want to hear from each of us on like our mindset when we were 18 years old, leaving high school and going into college. Like what was our mindset, the way we were like going to live our life? What were we excited about? What were we looking forward to after being out of high school? And I'm very curious about like our very different answers.
Yeah. I'll run with that. I will say my outlook on the world was very rare. My addictions had already taken off fully
Yeah.
before college, like high school. They were morphing into some scarier substances. Um, I was the kid who watched like Scarface, if you remember the movie Scarface, like the drug
Hmm.
dealing movie with cocaine, and he's importing all of this cocaine and selling it in the US and the Miami parts, like South Florida. But I'm a guy who watched that and thought it was incredible. Like thought that my life would be awesome if I could live it that way. Um, Even down to the end of the movie of like dying over drug dealing. I was like, kind of a cool way to go out, if it came
Hmm.
down to it. Um, so I like had a thought going, I'd say my main thought going from high school to college was the freedom. Like I'm going to be away from mom and dad. I'm going to have way more time to myself to do whatever I want to do. No one's looking over my shoulder anymore. So I can get into drugs more. Um, and I knew that I wanted that dealing was going to be a part of that experience. Before I even got there, I was like, I'm probably going to start selling drugs so I can do more drugs and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. How about you, Lucas?
I don't think I had much of a plan other than I didn't want to go to college. And I knew that. I didn't think I'd be able to do as much drugs and alcohol at college as I was able to do at high school. Like the schoolwork would just be too intensive. And so, yeah, I announced to everybody that I definitely didn't want to go to college. I was probably the only kid in my graduating class at one high school that didn't go to college. And then I went back to a public high school after that, where it was maybe a little more normal that some people wouldn't.
Hmm.
And so I don't think I really had any plan other than just how do I continue to get high and drunk and fund that and make it work. But what I didn't know was around the corner for me was my parents holding a line. I failed high school, one class by 1 point. And so I went back in the summer and did an online English school, like English class. And it was, in hindsight, I mean, it was just miserable. You just like clicked through. It's like, read this paragraph, answer this question, read this paragraph, answer this question. And it'd be like 200 of those questions a day. And I was just like,
Hmm.
I just like can't live like this. This is crazy. So I just stopped doing it. So then my parents finally held the line. I was 18 now. Obviously, I wasn't interested in finishing high school, wasn't interested in going to college. So they so they asked me if I wanted to go to treatment. And that was the first time that I said no. And I went and I was homeless for 3 months. And then they came and found me. Then I went to treatment, went to sober living in Florida. And none of that panned out. But that was like my coming out of high school into college age experience for that first year was like homelessness, treatment, sober living, back to Charleston, and then I got a DUI and all the stuff. Like, I think I was on PTI for something like pretrial intervention. So when I got the DUI, like all my charges came back up, and I I went to court for everything. So that would be like my first year of college, like what it would have been was all that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even go as far to think about the grades. All I could think about, or how I was going to pass, all I could think about was the freedom and the party and getting that experience. And it didn't last long, let me tell you. I felled out pretty quick.
I basically had Lucas's exact experience coming out of high school too. Same exact experience. No, I like so being like the one like, you know, non-addict on here. Like it was really interesting for me going into college because like I was terrified. Like I was so like worried about flunking out, and because I had this myth in my head that I had to do really well in college to like be successful in life. So I remember being just like super nervous, super scared about like getting good grades. My entire life I had been told like you have to go to college to be successful, and I felt a lot of pressure that I don't know, I'd be like letting my family down if I like failed out. So I had a lot of anxiety. Like my first like bit of college, I was trying to figure that out. And yeah, it was interesting how that played out too, because then I like just picked a major that I thought was going to make me a lot of money that I didn't really care about, and just kind of like just I don't know, went through it without any type of passion or enjoyment. I was just trying to like get through it. So it was definitely like a very different experience. And pretty miserable in a lot of ways, you know, like different kind of misery, but than what y'all are talking about. But yeah, still trying to be something that I wasn't in this weird way. So yeah, pretty stressful. Pretty stressful. Yeah. And all around you have people telling you like, oh, this is gonna be the best time of your life. You know, you're this is gonna be the best, but I found it to be wildly stressful, trying to like maintain grades and work, pay for rent, do all those kind of like big boy responsibility things, and try to like have fun somewhere in there. Yeah, it was, I'll just say this, I was glad when college was done. I really was. So.
Yeah. I can remember my first night moving on to campus. I went and found a guy that looked like he likes to party. I could tell just by the way his body language, the way he was dressed, how he was interacting with other people. Yeah. And I went up to that guy and I said, "Hey man, where do you find like drugs around here? Where could I find weed, Xanax?" And he was like, "Man, I like you already." And he literally like put his arm around me and was like, "Just hang with me for the night." So like that was priority number one from the first night on campus. And quite literally, I think I was high. I owned something, whether it were just alcohol or just weed or pills of some sort, like high every single day. Like my first goal was to get high every day of being on college campus. And I'm just curious about you, Cole. Like, what did that look like for you? Were you partying? Because there's still a big party culture in college, but for someone who didn't go down the same path as myself or Lucas, was that like, oh yeah, we'll go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Like you obviously had a little more control over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on the hall next to me, there was a guy who was kind of like the dude you're talking about, like in the room next to me on my hall in my freshman dorm. And Buddy was gone like by Christmas, like, but you could tell he was always like out, coming in late, coming in early. Sometimes I would be getting up, going to my 8 o'clock class, and he would be like coming in from somewhere, like looking like he'd been through it. So like I said, that just like scared the crap out of me too. I was like, oh my God, I can't like do that. So yeah, I was actually kind of like an exception to like one of the things we'll talk about in a minute. Like I actually didn't drink until I turned 21 because I was really scared about getting in trouble. I kind of operated with this mindset.
You're such
a very much a rule follower, and also like really scared that like if I drank, like I'd get in trouble or I'd become an alcoholic or something. I'm not saying this is like grounded in reality at all. A lot of research says that's not right at all, but yeah, very much a rule follower, but I would still go downtown. So I was like the designated driver. Like all my friends, my girlfriend, they all drank and had like fake IDs and stuff. And it was a pretty normal thing where we would go out like Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night. And in my friend group, there were definitely the more like wild ones that would be out each of those nights. And then like sometimes it'd be Wednesday night and Tuesday night. And they'd have a lot of like academic issues because of that. But in like my more like tight circle, we would typically maybe go out like 1 or 2 nights a week. And then there would be like house parties. And I was like the DD up until I was 21. So I would be just like hanging out like in the like bar or club. Like I figured out that they had orange juice behind the counter for screwdrivers. And so I would like just get like orange juice and be like doing my thing, like out on the dance floor. And I would like, or I had my water, like having a good time. And I found a lot of confidence in that too. I was like, man, I don't have to like get hammered drunk to have a good time or be like dancing at the party and all that kind of stuff. Like this is, I don't know, like you can still have a good time without that. It'd be annoying being around drunk people sometimes, but I really just want to hang out with my friends. So that wasn't everybody's experience. I mean, most people would be doing more the drinking thing, and I had that later. But I was over 21 when that started. So it was a big deal, my 21st birthday. And there was a lot of like pressure too, like, hey, you got to drink just a beer. And I would get very like stubborn. Like, I'm not going to do it. You can't make me drink. I'm not going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Almost like a point of like pride. I can be really stubborn when I feel like I'm being pressured.
Side quest really quick, but you mentioned fake IDs. And I just have to note how difficult it was back in the day to get fake IDs, like getting someone to pass theirs down or someone that looks similar to you. Whereas now I have nieces and nephews who are, you know, they're going through that phase of like getting fake IDs. And it's as simple as like taking a picture of themselves, putting it in an app, and it's mailed to their door like in 2 business days. And it's actually their picture with a good date on there, a good address.
Well, we would have like one, or there'd be like a one like decent girl one and one decent guy one, and like 10 people would share these.
They'd pass it back on the line.
Oh, pass back. So it would be like they go up, show it to the door guy, and then like you always like have in the friend group like somebody who was legit over 21, and then they would run it back and pass it back, and we'd all basically use the same one getting in. And the bars were like very much incentivized to like get us in there, because then we would like buy drinks or orange juice and like make money for the bar, you know. So they weren't really trying to like be super strict about it.
Yeah, I had a fake ID that worked for like a year and a half before it got taken, and it was my friend Drew, who was half Asian. Nothing alike. Like, dude, he looked Asian on his ID, but it didn't get taken from him for a long time.
Yeah,
I was always
sure
by that, how long it worked.
Yeah, and I think it's changed a lot even since we were in school or in that age range. I think now they have like different regulations, and they might scan IDs now. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's like a different game now. But like when I was doing it, it was very much like the super bad era, you know, where you had like an ID that said like McLovin, you know, and that was your like your ID. So good
stuff. Well, what was the next one we were going to get into?
Next one, man. So the next segment is kind of like just the myths, the party myth in college. I have like 3 myths here that we can kind of talk out. So the first one is everybody drinks in college. And I'll just go ahead and answer that one, you know, because I had already spoke to it earlier. And that is a myth. A lot of people, the majority of people probably drink in college, I would say. But what's interesting is I can even think of like with the people I knew, there were some that were having more of like the classic college experience where they like lived on campus or lived like around like the campus in apartments. And then there was a lot of people who were trying to do like a little bit more of like a responsible way, and they would like commute to class. So they would commute in, and then like the days they weren't in class, they would be like working somewhere. And very often like those people wouldn't really drink or party in my experience. It was more the people that were very much like ingrained in like the college culture that you would see more drinking. But even within that, like, doesn't mean everybody drank. Like I said, like myself and like another friend, we were known as like the water team because we were the ones who were always like driving. But most people do, I would say. I mean, what do you guys think?
I
If
mean,
that's a myth or not?
I wouldn't even know how to, throw out a number there, just because I selected very carefully the people that I chose to hang around, and they were people that could provide alcohol or drugs to me. So,
Mhm.
I wasn't hanging out with any athletic clubs, the tennis team. I thought about joining the tennis team in college, and very quickly when I realized, like, oh, I have to take a yoga class and I have to come to these 6:30 a.m. classes, like, nah, fam, that's not going to
Mhm.
work for me. I'm not doing it.
Yep.
So I backed out of like that pretty quick. I was like drama theater kid kind of in high school, and even theater kids, like, we still got pretty messed
Yeah.
up. But I dropped away from that crowd in college. Um, so yeah, I mean, in my eyes, yeah, everyone drank and used drugs, but that was the only people that I put myself around.
Yeah. Yeah. The next myth, or Lucas, do you have any comments on that first myth that everyone drinks in college? Or are you kind of like the same as David? Like,
Same as David, but I looked something up that said, according to a 2023 national survey on drug use and health, 49.6% of full-time college students age 18 to 25 reported consuming alcohol in the past month. So about half of that group, 29.3% engaged in binge drinking, defined as 5+ drinks for males and 4+ drinks for females on a single occasion. And then 6.8% of full-time college students reported heavy drinking, meaning binge drinking occurred on 5 or more days in the past month. And in the beginning, it seemed pretty accurate, but by the end of it, I feel like just some liars.
Man, if that's all it takes to qualify as a binge drinker, is what, 5 drinks or more per day for a male?
Well, think about that. 5 drinks and reported heavy drinking, meaning doing that 5 or more days in the past month.
Ooh,
Like, I knew so many people that were doing that, even if it was only Fridays and Saturdays and it was only 5 drinks, which to me didn't look like a problem at the time at all. Like, those were kind of the kids that were going a little softer on things.
those were those responsible kids.
But that's 8 days in a month. So it's just interesting. 6.8%.
Yeah.
I would think it would have been higher than that. Now 50-50 drinking, even that seems kind of low. I would think like 75-25, but
Yeah. I don't know. That was my first thought, was I bet it's more 50-50. Like, if you hung out with the kids that were athletics, academics, those things were their first priority, they're probably not partying. Yeah, and again, I just didn't see those kids.
but
Not
not even not partying. They have not consumed alcohol in the past month. So that's not even one drink one time, which kind of makes me think more of a Cole of like, I'm not drinking at all. And like, that's a choice I'm making versus just, I had one drink at this one party I ended up at. Like, that's all you would have to do to be flagged in that group.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was the same as you, where I hung out with a lot of college kids despite not going to college, downtown College of Charleston. And obviously I was drawn to all the ones that were having keggers and throwing parties and doing drug and all that kind of stuff, like that was all I really knew, because that was all I wanted to know. I wasn't trying to. I probably ran into some kids here and there that were, and I just thought that they had 3 heads, that were like, oh, I think I'm just not going to drink. Or it was like, who's the guy in that room? And they're like, oh, that's my roommate. Just leave him alone. He's not really into partying or anything. Just like, what? So like, what does he do? Like, he just goes to college.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I ran into those people too, but it was a quick like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. See you later.
or definitely didn't want to stay in it.
Yeah, we were the ones, 3 heads.
Yeah, now I feel that way, but back then I thought it was crazy.
Yeah. What was next on the list, Cole?
It's not a problem if I still get good grades. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of moms and dads, you know, they fall into the belief of like, oh, it's just a teenager doing teenager things or a college student doing college things. And I've talked about this so many times, especially around you guys, but I think the big word that sticks out for me is unmanageability. Like when parents ask, "Oh, how do I know it's a problem?" I say, "Is their life unmanageable?" And look across. Don't just look at grades. Let's look across the spectrum here. I mean, is it what do their grades look like? What do their relationships look like? Or, you know, have they dropped out of their hobbies, athletics? Like, are things becoming unmanageable for them? How does their finances look? Like, are they continuously asking you for more and more and more money, and it's never enough now? Like if you take a bird's eye view and things start to look unmanageable, then you need to do a deeper dive.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of a few clients I've seen over the years who have, like, in my opinion, decent grades, but they have a lot of chaos around them. So I think in this myth, good grades is very subjective. You know, that depends on someone's like academic ability, how many classes they're taking, what is their major, like to the types of classes they're taking. Good grades is like really subjective. And I can think of at least a couple friends that I've had or had that had some serious like drinking problems, but like good grades, like really smart guys. But when they would drink, the chaos would be like kind of out of control, like the relationship problems. So that's what when you're talking about unmanageability, David, like it's not just like grades. Is it do they have like arguments with their girlfriends or friends? Are they like driving drunk? Like that was a big one. Are they like one of those that like are always kind of like an angry drinker? You know, angry drunk, like getting in fights and stuff. I mean, one of the guys headbutted a wall in our dorm, like just chaos. You know what I mean? Like they're like, what are we doing, dude? Um, so grades, I do not think is the only measure of that at all. I think that's very narrow view of it.
Yeah. Lucas?
I got a weird sample size, but I mean, the guys I know are coming to sober living, so I feel like bad grades was probably the first red flag of many that tip parents off that there might be a problem. So I'm just not as familiar with someone who's like alcoholic, addict level drinking and using and getting good grades. And Nicole's point, I don't know what good grades means. Is that like all B's, all C's, not failing, all A pluses? Like I feel like that's super subjective. And I'm glad you brought up majors because every partier that I knew when I was college age, and no knock on these, but was communications, sociology, psychology. Like they had very similar majors. They all bragged about how easy they were and how they could party around it and not have to really study much or do much and just get kind of an easy degree and get through. So
Yeah.
there's kind of a weird misconception that I guess I just don't have much experience with of people who even say that because that's not who I run into.
I had a wild case. One of my good friends growing up was certainly had a problem with alcohol drinking and still does, and had a great career. Like went to school to be an engineer, did that. Severe alcoholic through school, but he would always go back to class. He would have a night out and like be passed out and had to use the bathroom on himself. 3 a.m. He'd get up the next morning and go make a 98 on his test, and he just claimed to have a photographic memory. And he said, "Man, all I have to do is read the chapter once, and I'll ace any test that they give me."
Yeah, yeah. The headbutting guy was like that.
Yeah,
and it actually sober now because of like the problems that showed up like in his marriage and his relationships, and it caught up, but it caught up to him years later. You know?
I don't think my buddy ever got sober, but maybe one day.
But let's be honest, as somebody with a photographic memory who's also an alcoholic in college is probably the tiniest sliver of the college population Like that's super rare.
Oh,
You
100%.
can just not study, look at it once, ace everything, and then basically just be like hammered all the time or messed up on drugs. And that's never gonna, you'd still have like a going to class. I know I've never been to college. You still have like a going to class, like an attendance grade in some of these classes and classwork grades, or am I wrong on that?
Depends on the class.
I
Depends
feel
on the
like,
school and it depends on the class.
it's not just like, oh, I went to college. I just looked at my textbook once and then I never showed up for everything and just got A's. It's like there's still like a punctuality thing of like, oh, I missed that test because I was so hungover that it didn't matter. You were going to ace it with your photographic memory. If you didn't show up, then it's a 0, right?
Yeah, so and there are some older school like professors who would essentially you only had to be a class 2 days out of the semester, midterm and finals. But then there were others that would have like weekly quizzes, or they would actually have TAs who would like look in the auditorium and you have like a assigned seat for attendance. Kind of just depends on the class.
This is interesting, but it says, I just asked about photographic memory, and it says the ability to recall an image in perfect detail long after seeing it once. It's extremely rare and may not even really exist the way that it's often portrayed. But what researchers can measure is called eidetic memory, which is the ability to vividly recall an image for a short period after it's gone, usually seconds to minutes. And children, it's around 2 to 10% of children show signs of eidetic memory in the world. And adults, it's almost non-existent. Most lose the ability as they age. We're talking fractions of a percent that keep that eidetic memory. Very interesting, though, for children. 2 to 10% show signs of.
Interesting. Let's see. Myth number 3 is the college years don't count. And I guess like what that myth is saying is that while you're in college, like you can drink, party, do whatever. It doesn't matter. Like you're supposed to in college. Do you guys think that's a myth or not?
I think people believe that. So like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like an objective thing, that's like either like true or not true. It's just if people believe it. I think there are a lot of people that believe it, of like, that's what college is for. And a lot of that comes from like societal stuff of like expectations placed on people from movies to music, to like older relatives that are like, well, when I was in college, it's really all about chasing tail and drinking beers and getting in a frat and doing, like your uncle that might say some stuff like that to you. So I think we kind of make a lot of that pressure to put on people, not across the board, but it's no mystery to me as to like where that comes from.
Yeah.
Freshman 15. That's a big term that's thrown around for people going to college. Like they're going to gain that first 15 pounds from drinking.
Yeah.
And then
I think
20.
What'd you say?
The treatment 20.
Treatment 20 from crushing Reese cups and cupcakes.
I'd heard that before of just like, you're going to kind of slow down, eat more food, not be as on the go, especially with addicts, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that college years don't count. I think that's a myth. Because I'm also thinking about like, in my opinion, what is the main point of college? And I think most people would say like it's to get an education, to get a degree. And I think there's like some truth to that. But I also think the education, the more important part is like life education. Like how do you deal with adversity? Like how do you deal with like you have a final on Thursday, but you got to like work. How are you going to study for that? How are you going to balance that out? Put you in this like pressure cooker that sometimes even happens now in life, right? But we have deadlines. We have things we have to get to strive towards. Like going through college can help one develop the confidence that they can do those hard things. And I think, when I think back on my own college experience, like that's the thing I took away from it. Like that I knew how to get through really tough things and what worked really well, which usually was like structure, routine, and what didn't work well, which is usually like cramming or not asking for help, and like learning that. And that still plays out today. And I'm almost 40 years old. So the college years very much do count, not only from like a substance standpoint, but like how do you deal with adversity? Like, do you know how to like ask for help? Do you know how to like put in routines in your life to help you get through like challenges that come up? So I think the college years do count for a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? I don't know if you guys noticed, but alcohol isn't the only thing that college kids are doing. Did y'all know that? They're doing other stuff.
Dang.
Yeah. So there's,
You're
anybody ever
muted,
heard of,
Lucas.
I said, I'm just hearing this now for the first time.
yeah, they don't only drink. Times have changed. So on college campuses, what are some other substances you typically will see? Stimulants. And for those who don't know, that's things like Adderall, Vyvanse, Ritalin. People will often like abuse or use these around finals. They like help them study. Vaping and weed is another pretty big one. Energy drinks and caffeine for like the all-nighters. And then one that's not substance related is like social media and gaming. So doing a lot of like getting your dopamine that way, and really like depleting your mental health as a result. So those are like 4 other areas besides alcohol that are pretty commonly seen in that age range. Do you guys think that's true? Y'all believe that? Can you see that being an issue?
I bet there's been a big increase in the gaming one. Stood out to me, of just like specifically young men going like already into video games, so maybe a little more isolated, not as social, like outside of games. Maybe they're social within games, playing with other people. And then going to college where there's a lot of fear around like, oh, I'm going to be around all these people. It just seems like that'd be the perfect trap of like, I'm just going to stay in my dorm room and play games. And like, that's kind of my safe place. And I'm not going to go join a club or see what's going on out there or go check out this party. Just would make a lot of sense to me.
That's an excellent point, because I'm even thinking, so I was in college from like 2004 to 2008, and games were a big deal then, but they were very different. So it was a really common practice, like I remember my freshman dorm, where guys would take 3 or 4 TVs into a dorm room and have like a Halo tournament. And so everybody be in there like playing
Halo.
Yeah, I remember like playing Halo tournaments and stuff. Then like later in college, like Guitar Hero was coming out and like a big deal. And it was like very normal, like at a house party, like Guitar Hero would be going on in the living room, where people would be playing like this social thing. I had a Sega Genesis in my apartment room, and it was really common that I would be like sitting there like studying and stuff, and one of my roommates who loved it would be in there playing like NBA Jam, like laying in the floor while I was like studying or doing whatever, and we would just be talking. So there was a big like social connection part of it then, because the online portion of gaming wasn't as big of a deal then. And I think that has really changed a lot in, the 20 years since I was in school. So I think that's a really good point, Lucas.
Yeah, and then all the drug stuff obviously makes sense. Stimulants for staying up to like cram all night. I've certainly seen my fair share of people with like Adderall and Vyvanse and Ritalin and stuff like that. Probably don't remember seeing that as much for cocaine or like meth or anything like that, but I feel like the like ADHD stimulants we're seeing a lot. And then more in like the party scene, like ecstasy, ketamine, LSD, mushrooms, marijuana. What's another one? Molly, like the pure MDMA versus the ecstasy pills, benzos, opiates. I mean, you kind of see everything.
Nitrous.
Nitrous.
You see those happening a lot in college.
Nitrous mafia rolling through.
Yeah. Dude, one thing that stands out.
Big nitrous guy.
Yeah, I loved it. Loved a good balloon, dude. The one thing that stands out a lot more to me right now is how much that playing field has changed since we were college age. And what I mean by that is there's all kinds of new stuff out now that you can buy in a gas station. It's like legal. You can go in a smoke shop, a gas station, and buy like kratom that's so powerful. Like there's a new form of kratom called 7-hydroxy that is making kids like nod out, drool on themselves. I mean, it almost looks like heroin, like they had just done heroin when they take this pill or snort it. There's all of these like Delta 8s and synthetic forms of marijuana that are more dangerous than just smoking marijuana, but you can go in a shop and buy it almost no matter what state you're in the country. And I think that's one of the bigger things that parents need to be looking out for, not only in college, but even in the high school. And it's being reported middle school, heavy use in middle school, high school, and college.
Well, I'm even just thinking, like, and I know I sound like an old timer talking about this, but, you know, like when I was in school and like, you know, you kind of get introduced to alcohol, I mean, you really didn't have that many options. I mean, craft beer, which is kind of becoming a thing. So it was mostly like Natty Light, Miller Light, like kind of like that, you know, very like light beer. It was really accessible in a kegger. Or there would be like kind of like punches and stuff that people would make with like Everclear or whatever. But it would be like way harder to get your hands on like weed or whatever. Like you had to have a plug. Same thing with pills, or you'd have to have somebody like had a prescription for Adderall. But now, like I think about how accessible it is with like CBD stores and like gas stations. To your point, like it's just way easier to try different things. There's a bigger buffet now, I would say. Yeah. It's more like accessible. Why are you laughing, Lucas? Why are you laughing?
Well, you gotta have a plug, fam.
Yeah, it started when you said plug.
Gotta have a plug. Gotta have somebody like can hook you up with that. Like
in fam, we got Cole saying plug.
All right, real quick. Did any of you ever try salvia?
Yes.
Oh,
every time I did it, it was
the worst drug ever made.
No,
see, I was gonna.
I did not try that.
I was gonna disagree with what you said, David, because I think that goes down in college. Because I think in college there's more access to like real drugs and like alcohol and stuff like that. And I think you see way more of that in middle school and high school, because that's the only thing that you could get is you could, hey, mister, outside of a like a head shop and get someone to get you, a kava or a kratom. Like those feel like more like desperate drugs that people either do when they're being like drug tested or they're underage and don't have access to like normal drugs. But I feel like by the time you go to college, like that's where it's all at, right? Like that's where you're going to find like the regular marijuana and like heroin and cocaine and meth and pills and all that kind of stuff that might not have been in your little high school. Now you're in this big college town where that's like abundant. Because even drug dealers, like where do you want to be set up, outside of a high school or outside of a college? You know, outside of a college all day long, way more people, way more access to money, less oversight. So I think that kind of, those kind of more obscure things go down in college and you don't see as much of that.
I would say the only one to be worried about, I totally get that point with pain pills, opiates, all the other stuff. But from the work I've done with high school students who have smoked weed and they've smoked these marijuana vape pens, like the Delta 8 stuff, they would rather have the synthetic. Like they're getting higher off the synthetic than they are off of the real stuff. So I think that one we wouldn't be in agreement on, but the others I see your point and I would agree with.
That's what I'm saying. Like with the buffet, like it's a bigger buffet now of like what maybe you don't like. Like when I think about the kids that who just didn't like beer and stuff, like, or they didn't like alcohol, sometimes they would just, and maybe this happens still, and I guess if you're an alcoholic or addict, you're going to get it any way you can. But they would just like stop them. But I can see now, even for people who are not like alcoholics or addicts, there's just more options. Like, okay, you don't like that, but you really like candy, so maybe you go get like a very like sour, like Four Loko type thing. Or like maybe you don't like drinking at all, but you learn that you can like just eat a CBD gummy and get kind of like messed up from that. So I think it's just like a bigger buffet of stuff. It's like come out over the last, 10 to 20 years. And it just makes me feel like really old talking about it like that. But that's kind of what we're seeing, you know?
I just saw one the other day that was like a little 5-hour energy shot looking bottle that you could buy. I can't remember the brand
Yeah.
name, but it was kava and kratom in one bottle. And they said that whoever was bringing it up, and you never know if this stuff's real, but they said they were walking into the pharmacy, and there was like a high school, college looking kid, and he was like begging the person for money or asking if they could buy him one of those little shots. And so the guy went in and like asked the pharmacist, like, what the heck is this kid talking about? And then he was explaining to him, like, oh, they're all addicted to this stuff. But then I'm also thinking, like, you're the pharmacist and you're just talking about it like matter of fact of like, oh yeah, they're all addicted to this stuff. They do crazy things to get it. We keep selling it. Like, why are you selling it as a pharmacy,
Right.
you know, that's like supposed to be like providing like health and wellness products and stuff? If you know you got like high school and college age kids like fiending outside, begging people for money, that just seems totally weird to me.
Mm. Yeah, I think the next thing we need to talk about is like why that age range is so particularly vulnerable. Um, you know, and you know, something that like most people are somewhat aware of, I would say, is like the research around like the brain is still developing. Um, I'll be honest with you, I feel like we're really learning a lot about the brain, but there's like we only know like a fraction, and there's a ton we do not really understand. And I think everything is really theoretical, but that's been like stated for a long time that people's brains are still developing up to like 25, 26. I would argue I don't think development process ever really ends, but they say that like makes you like more at risk, particularly when you throw in the social aspect of it, like sleep, nutrition, and stress, like all being like pretty rough. When I was talking earlier, like about like why I was really glad to be out of college, like that was a big part of it. Like, had no money, um, like having to work, go to class, study, uh, try to like have a social life, like all this stuff. Like it is like drinking from a fire hose in a lot of ways, and you just completely being flooded. So I think there's a really like high chance that you're going to like gravitate towards numbing behaviors, you know, or addictive behaviors, and then throw on top of it like the insecurity. I think it's interesting when each of us were talking earlier, even though our paths were all like different. Like you can tell one thing we all actually had in common at 18 years old is we were all like pretty insecure with who we were. You know, like I just didn't go the route of like alcohol and drugs. I went like I went the other way. Like I'm not going to do alcohol and drugs. I'm going to get good grades. I'm going to like get this degree, this status or whatever. It was all like out of like insecurity and not really liking who I am and thinking I wasn't enough, you know? And like that's also the same for you guys. Like y'all didn't think you could have fun without alcohol and drugs. Like once you'd have fun with that, you're like, I can't ever do anything without it, you know? So there is like a deeper, I think there's a deeper like growing up process that's happening for college age people that has to be like acknowledged and addressed. What do you guys think of all that? I'm kind of like rambling on this, but what do y'all think?
I think that it's like everything we've talked about up to this point all factor into this question. And when I just think back to like being 18 and then working with a lot of 18-year-old guys that are maybe coming like straight from their parents' house, there's like that first time that you get freedom in your life. And especially when you brought up like nutrition, sleep, and like maybe social interaction. I was thinking about that like, I feel like most people can relate. Maybe not as much women as men. I just don't know. But I know with like men and the young guys I work with that the first night it's just like, so what's bedtime? And you're like, oh man, there is no bedtime. They're like, I'm staying up till 5 a.m. You know, and like just there's like this immediate boomerang effect, and like they're eating like ice cream for breakfast and they're having cereal for dinner, and they're like, you know, yeah, we can just do what we want, you know, because there's no parents around, and now it's just my time to shine and do things the way I want. And it's always really cool seeing them like slowly reinvent the wheel, where like they like realize like, God, my stomach hurts, and I'm just like, well, dude, you had like ice cream for breakfast, cereal for lunch, and then ice cream for dinner. Like, maybe you should chill out on that. And they're like, yeah, maybe I need to eat more vegetables. You're just like, yeah, dude, your whole life structure up to this point was that way for like good reason, not just because your parents want to control you or hold you back or whatever. So it's always funny seeing these people like boomerang. And I think like drugs and alcohol fit perfectly into that of like, God, my mom always told me like not to do drugs, but now they're like all around. So I'm going to do them. Like there's this rebellious / maybe also like Pandora's box, like don't open it, but it's like, well, can I just peek in it and just see if there's anything in there? But once it's open, and now it's going crazy. So I think it's just all that at once. And then you pair that with another thing that I've seen with young guys is like school can just kind of become like the cheat code for like, all right, I'm now normally like away from my parents, like at least a couple hours. So I'm not like living with them. So they don't technically know what I'm doing. And then they're sending me money because I can't support myself. And I feel like that's more and more the case that people are not getting jobs while they're in college, and parents are like working to make it to where their children don't have to get a job and they can just be supported. So now I have this allowance. My bills are all paid. So like I can use this money, just kind of funny money on like drugs, alcohol, whatever, as long as I'm in school. And I've seen guys that come from that situation and then come to us in sober living and like almost immediately try to recreate it. And some do successfully, against our warnings and, alerts of just like, hey, they're kind of just like recreating the same setup of like, no, this time will be different when you send me to college and send me $250 a week. And then it just like immediately repeats. So I think it's just like the most prime breeding ground for this type of stuff to happen. It's kind of shocking to me that it doesn't happen to more people more often.
I think it does. It's just people might be fortunate enough to like self-correct a little ways. So I'm even thinking about like myself. So I remember my first shopping trip. My first year, I lived in the dorm. Like we had to live in a dorm, and there was like David running out of it.
It's a little
We
tiny.
live in a dorm, and you have like a student like meal plan that comes with that. Or my parents.
Boring.
Boring. My sophomore year, moved into an apartment with my friends, and my first trip to the grocery store, you should have seen my shopping cart. It was just like Hungry Man dinners, Hamburger Helper, and I got like one of those big, like, I don't know how many gallons of ice cream. And I was like, God, this is mine. And like, I remember sitting and I was like, this is my ice cream, boys. Like, I'm not sharing with anybody. I remember sitting on like the couch with my lazy boy. And of course, in our living room, we had like 3 lazy boys set up, of course. And I'm like sitting in my lazy boy, eating like the ice cream and just being like, this is fine. This is how it should be, And then there being a situation where like one of those like burger and steak salesmen came to our apartment, and we all like bought all this like steak that we went in together and bought it from the guy, and that like set in the freezer because we would always just be going to like Chick-fil-A or Wendy's or Burger King or whatever. And it was a very normal thing that I would like get to 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and be like, man, I have like so many more hours I could stay up. And I would stay up for like 3 was a really normal thing for me. And then it's like, wait, like I didn't have like 8 o'clock classes, wouldn't have 9:30 classes. I wouldn't do my classes till like 10 would be the first one I'd go to. And so just like all this stuff, like not really working super well, but just like being so stuck in it and thinking I was okay. But then my last semester, I moved back home with my parents. And when I think back on it, like that was the semester I was the most like locked in because I had a routine. I would like go to campus. I would go to gym. I would go to a class, go to the library because I couldn't just go back home and take like a 3-hour nap because my parents lived 30 minutes away from school. So I would go to the library and study, go to my next class, go to work. And that was like my routine. And it was a bit of what we offer our guys in sober living, like that type of structure. And thinking back on it now, I'm like, man, that's like where I really started to act like the adult I was finally, and it took 4 freaking years to get there. So it's just really interesting, like what gets normalized. And I mean, it's goofy looking back and talking about it now, like I don't necessarily have like regrets around it, but I have like empathy for people who are in that age range and they get that freedom for the first time. They're like, let's do this, let's eat all the Hungry Man. Do they still have those Hungry Man frozen dinners?
I think so. But it's just like it's
Crush
goofy,
those.
it's silly. But I think like that's why I don't stop guys when they're like eating ice cream for breakfast and I let them do it. Because I just think it's so important as you become an adult that you realize that a lot of like the societal wisdom of like why you do this, why you don't do that isn't just because your mom told you not to. And that there are like real life consequences and things that'll hold you back if you live a lifestyle like that. And I just think there's no better lesson than experiencing it for yourself of just like my stomach hurts, or like David, we had that guy that like he had like chocolate chip cookies every day for like weeks, if not like, months. And he's like gaining weight and his teeth became like gummy bears. And, like there's like all these issues. And I mean, I hate it, but like he wasn't listening to us anyways on that. So it's like, do I ban chocolate chip cookies for the house? Like it seems like a weird strike against freedom because this one guy can't handle it. But I mean, I've seen him today. He doesn't look like he eats chocolate chip cookies every day. It looks like he's in pretty good shape and kind of figured it out. And now knows, better for better reason than just me telling him not to, why he shouldn't do that.
Yeah. I also would say on the flip side of it, the peer pressure and like the social influence can go the other way. Like I was like a way pickier eater when I was younger. And then being around the other kids in the dining hall, I like really started to realize like, man, I've got to like get my stuff together. Like I'm just eating the same like pizza and chicken fingers every day. So then I would like challenge myself to eat an apple every day before I got to the bus stop. And I didn't like apples. So I would like grab an apple on the way out of the dining hall, eat as much of it as I could before I got to the bus stop, then I throw it away. And did that like time after time. And sure enough, like after about 10 times of doing that, like I was like kind of excited to eat the apple. And you get to like 20 times, I'm like, it's like a normal thing. And now I eat apples like very often. So I acquired the taste, but you definitely have to have like some motivation to do that. You know what I mean? And like push through it. It's not going to be amazing. Cause I'll note the apples are right next to the chocolate chip cookies. And so like I would usually grab a chocolate chip cookie and an apple. Like that was like a thing, So I don't even know exactly where I'm going with that, but
That's my first time hearing about apples being an acquired taste. I've not heard that before, but that's good. I'm glad you acquired it.
I acquired it, dude. Wouldn't do it as a kid. Wouldn't eat apples. There's more foods. I have like always like food challenges that I'm like having to do because I'm a pretty picky eater. And so
dude, the amount of guys that I work with that come in day one and have told me they're allergic to vegetables. I'm like, oh, like so one vegetable? They're like, nah, pretty much all of them. I'm like, I talked to your parents. I'm gonna like ask them about that, and they're like, they don't know. They don't know about the allergy. A doctor told like they're just trying to cover it up. And you're like, man, it's okay that you just don't like vegetables, and I'm not even saying you gotta like them. I'm gonna push you to maybe just like try them some, like cook different ways, see what you like, because it makes sense when you're like 7, you have boiled asparagus one time with like no salt and pepper on it. And are just like, this sucks. I'm never trying this again. But there's might be other ways you could cook it that you like it,
Yeah, for sure.
The one thing I want to add, one
go
more
ahead.
thing to this, based on top of everything y'all just said. But how much of it do you think is just the societal pressure at this point in your life to like figure out your place in the world? And I can speak for myself. Like I was scared to death of that, of this being a pivotal moment of going from high school to college where these bigger conversations are starting to happen of like, hey, and you need to pick out like a major and like talking about these things that were going to affect me 10, 20 years from now. And I wasn't ready for that. And I think part of me was like, but wait, I'm still a kid. Like I still want to do kid stuff. Like, I don't know. I just wonder if maybe that were put off from being 18 years old to 25 or 30 years old, if I would have reacted the same way to these like freedoms. And like part of it, I do believe, was me trying to put that stuff off, like bury it, of like, hey, I'm not ready to make these types of decisions, so I'm gonna like create big issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if that's true for a lot of the people who struggle.
I will say that was probably the only wise thing going on in my life at that time. Was I remember being in that college prep school and saying, I don't know what I want to do. And them saying like, well, you'll just go figure it out. And I was like, well, what if I don't figure it out? Or what if I pick something and then I get into that job and I don't like it? And they were like, well, then I guess you'll do something else. And I was like, but then I'll owe a bunch of money in student loans. And they're like, I mean, I could just see them getting like sick of my points of just like, can you just shut up and like, so we can continue doing the SAT prep. Like I just kind of wanted everyone to fall in this line of like 18, go to school. It's okay if you don't know, you'll figure it out when you get there, which is like convenient for you to say. You're not going to be there. You're just pushing me on to the next thing of like, oh, talk to someone there and I'm sure you'll figure out what you want to do. And it's like, why? Because I took math 101 and English 101. Like, I don't think that's going to push me over the edge of knowing that I want to, you know, major in philosophy versus communication. I do have all kind of my own beef and baggage with the system being that way.
Yeah. Well, this kind of goes into our last segment. It's like how to like survive these college ages, you know, or survive college. And I think the first advice I would have is like, just open your eyes. Whether you're in college or you're doing like the tech school thing or you're just working, open your eyes and pay attention to what's going on around you. And too often we're too busy focusing on everybody else and what they're doing and what I should have. Like, just pay attention to what's going on around you. And I can say when I was that age, I wasn't doing the best job of that. But when I had some like real life stuff that happened like around 23 that caused me to like open my eyes and start paying attention, that I realized that the psychology classes that I had to take as part of like my business degree really were great. Like, I really enjoyed them and like thought about like maybe that'll be a career for me. And then like went to see a counselor the first time. I'm like, man, this seems like it could be it. And I found it, you know, in college. But if I hadn't like had my eyes open, and I'm not even going to say it's necessarily me who opened them, like if I hadn't had my eyes open, I would have missed it, you know? So that's like my first piece of advice, like pay attention to what's going on around you, because a lot of times the signs are right there, you know? And it's usually being taught in the most like weird and convenient ways as well. What kind of tips do you guys have for like how to survive these college years?
Go ahead, Diamond Dave.
Man, it's tough. I mean, I was like a train that was hard to stop. So, and I think my advice would go more to the families, for the families to keep their eyes open, and to try to recorrect if they see that things are going awry or trains getting off track. Because I don't know. I don't know. You know, I don't know how much it would have altered my path had I had a little more, you know, had watched this podcast at 18, 19 years old. It would have needed to be my parents that corrected me a little more. I don't know. Yeah, let me think on that a little more. You take it away, Lucas.
I like what you said, Cole. I think, and there's like two different classes of people, I guess. Like if it's the person who's got like addiction, alcoholism issues, probably is going to be removing themselves from that situation, getting settled, and then maybe going back, and really not like rushing that either. Right back into the same situation. Once they go back, I've seen a lot of people go back to college sober and be successful. And I think something that I see with all of them is they have a very, very clear purpose of why they are going to college. There's no more confusion about like to make friends or to join a club or to do that. They're like, I'm going for my education and that's it. They're like, the blinders are off. And yeah, I'll be pleasant and maybe do this or do that or go to an event. But like very much the focus, the priority is I'm going to finish my degree. And I think that level of like clarity and purpose is hard to mess with. at that point, and they're very successful because of that, of just finishing college, getting good grades, doing whatever, because they kind of got all that other stuff out of their system. So that's for like the sober person. For the person just struggling in general in college, I think that community is really big, and like having some sense of that you're not alone in it, because I would imagine a lot of people who go to college have these issues and struggle, and the adjustment can be hard and stuff like that. So just having other people around, whether again that's a friend group, clubs, sports, rec league activities in the town. I mean, like whatever it is, just having some sense that it's like bigger than just you, and like support and help around it.
Yeah, I think finding your people is really important. What is that that saying about like you're the product of like the 5 people you spend the most time with, or how does that go? What is the saying on that?
It's something like that.
Yeah, you're like this sum of the people
you are the 5 people. I think it's that straightforward of like you are the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like you're basically a combination of them.
I think there's some truth to that for sure. A lot of truth in that. I'll say another one is like focus on the basics. As boring as it is, eating, sleeping, drinking water, moving your body, and go to effing therapy. Like those few points, I think go a long ways. Yeah, so many people I see they're like in that college age range think they have to like have it figured out and have a really hard time admitting that they're trying to figure it out. And I think most of them could probably benefit talking to a therapist and then just practicing the basics of like go to sleep at night, drink water. Like
Sounds like something a therapist would say.
it's true.
No cap for
It's
real.
true though. No cap.
Fam, this
Yeah,
guy's
I mean,
not gonna plug.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my other advice is like, if you are out there struggling, you're overcompensating or you're using mood, mind altering substances to cope, like the chances are is that there's like a lot of fear in the background driving that bus. There's a lot of like trauma, depression, anxiety, whatever stuff that needs to be dealt with, things that you should probably talk to a therapist about, and work on you first. Maybe take time to pause and say, man, what do I need to fix or correct before you start working on your next biology exam?
yeah, putting a pause on it, it's so hard. It takes such a dose of humility, but and I don't, man, it's so hard to say it now. Like it makes so much more sense because if you had told me at the same time, I would have been like, but like 21 isn't that old. Like 22 isn't that old. And I remember feeling that like I'm like 22, I gotta graduate. Like I'm so old. You're really not that old. Like be intentional instead of just like forcing the issue. You know?
Well, it strikes at like the comparison and the FOMO too. When I've had guys that leave, that it's like, well, now I'm not going to graduate till I'm 23. And what does that say about me when all my friends are graduating at 22? And then they'll have jobs by the time I'm graduating. And what are they? Oh my God, they're looking on Instagram of like, they're over at a frat kegger this weekend and I'm here in sober living. Like, but those two things, FOMO and comparison, I feel like hurt a lot too.
Yeah.
All right.
That was kind of like the last segment, just a little bit of encouragement.
Well, that wraps up our video. Good little pre-college, preschool starting video.
I'm excited to start preschool.
So that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. All right. See ya.